Think of your sensitivity not as a mystical accident, but as a brilliant, high-stakes adaptation you made to survive. When you were a child, your environment wasn't a place where you could simply be yourself. It was a shifting, unpredictable landscape where your physical and emotional safety depended entirely on your ability to read the room. Because you couldn't rely on the adults around you to provide consistent stability, you were forced to become a master detective of human behavior. You developed an uncanny, almost superhuman ability to scan the faces, voices, and body language of the people who held power over your life, searching for the smallest signs of anger, disappointment, or mood swings before they even happened. This wasn't a choice, it was a desperate, unconscious survival strategy. By mastering the art of reading microexpressions, those flickers of tension in a jawline or a subtle tightening of the eyes, you learned to anticipate the emotional weather in your home. You became a radar system, constantly calibrated to detect danger long before it arrived. This forced hypervigilance essentially hardwired your brain to stay permanently alert. You stopped living in the present moment because your entire nervous system was dedicated to monitoring the future, scanning for potential threats to your peace. Over time, this constant state of watchfulness became your default setting, cementing your identity as the person who always knows what everyone else is feeling, even when they aren't saying a word. This long-term exposure to a high-pressure environment did more than just shape your habits. It physically changed the architecture of your brain. Your mirror neurons, the cells responsible for reflecting the experiences of others, became hyperactive through constant, heavy use. Your brain was essentially training for empathy at an Olympic level because your survival depended on it. It wasn't that you were born needing to feel everything. You were forged to feel everything so you could dodge the bullets of other people's emotional volatility. This is why you feel so drained when you walk into a crowded room today. Your brain is still running the same ancient, sophisticated software it developed when you were just a child, treating every single person you encounter as a potential data point to be analyzed for safety. Modern science has finally caught up to what you've been feeling all along. Studies on highly sensitive individuals prove that your brain doesn't just receive information the way other people's do. It processes it with much greater depth. The regions of your brain tied to empathy, emotional awareness, and sensory processing are essentially always on, absorbing the nuances of every interaction. You aren't just observing the world, your nervous system is physically digesting it. This is why you don't just know when someone is lying or when a room is tense. You feel it in your chest, your stomach, and your skin. You are carrying an emotional antenna that never turns off, a legacy of a childhood where your ability to feel the invisible was the only thing keeping you safe. Your psyche is naturally porous, a design choice from your past that now operates as a high-speed, invisible processing unit. You don't just walk into a room, you download it. This happens in 3 rapid-fire stages that occur so quickly you rarely realize you are doing it. Understanding this sequence is the key to stopping the drain and taking control of your energy. The first phase is the energetic scan. The moment you lock eyes with someone or even step into their proximity, your aura reaches out and begins a deep tissue scan of their psychological makeup. You are specifically hunting for what Carl Jung called feeling-toned complexes. These are the invisible clusters of suppressed emotions, the buried rage from a childhood disappointment, the hidden grief they refuse to mourn, or the sharp anxiety they are desperately trying to mask. You aren't just hearing their words, you are mapping the emotional landmines they are carrying. You can feel the weight of their secrets and the friction of their internal conflicts before they even open their mouth. This scan happens at the speed of thought, leaving you with an instant, often overwhelming gut feeling about a person's true state of mind. Once the scan is complete, you move into the second phase, unconscious absorption. This is the stage that feels the most like a trap. Jung called this participation mystique, a state of being where the boundary between me and you simply dissolves. Because your nervous system was conditioned to mirror others to ensure your own safety, you don't just observe their heavy emotions, you become them. If they are harboring deep resentment, you suddenly feel your own heart hardening. If they are spiraling into panic, your own breath hitches. You are essentially renting out your nervous system to their emotional state. It feels like you are losing your own identity, because in that moment you have completely merged with the frequency of the person standing across from you. You aren't choosing to do this. It is an automatic, hardwired reflex that leaves you carrying baggage that doesn't belong to you. Finally, you reach the third and most taxing phase, alchemical processing. This is where your biology acts as a living, breathing radar system. You don't just hold the garbage you've absorbed, your body attempts to transmute it. Through what Jung termed the transcendent function, you take the jagged, raw, and chaotic emotional energy you've pulled from others and process it through your own psyche, filtering it until it becomes digestible wisdom or calm. You are essentially doing the hard work of emotional integration on their behalf. This is the precise reason people feel physically lighter, more grounded, and oddly clearer after sitting with you for an hour. You have taken their chaotic noise and turned it into silence. You have taken their hidden grief and transmuted it into a sense of peace. You are performing a silent, invisible service, but the cost is high. You are paying for their relief with your own life force. Your energetic field is not just a passive bubble. It is a powerful, active beacon that broadcasts your internal frequency to the world. Whether you realize it or not, you are constantly sending out a signal that says, "I am a safe place to land." While this sounds beautiful in theory, it is a dangerous invitation in practice because it acts as a magnet for specific, often broken, archetypal personalities. If you don't build firm walls, you will find your life crowded with people who don't want to walk beside you, but who want to feed off you. You are essentially a lighthouse in a storm, but without the right training, you end up letting in every ship that is sinking, eventually causing your own vessel to take on water and capsize. The first archetype you will consistently pull into your orbit is the wounded child. These individuals are walking around with a gaping, unhealed cavity where their sense of self should be. Because they never received the unconditional love or validation they needed during their formative years, they are perpetually searching for a surrogate parent to fill that void. They sense your natural capacity for empathy, and they recognize that you are someone who won't turn away from their pain. They are drawn to you like a moth to a flame, craving your acceptance to soothe the deep, raw trauma they refuse to face themselves. You become their emotional pacifier, a soft place to dump all their unmet childhood needs, and they will stay as long as you provide the nurturing they were denied. The moment you ask them to stand on their own 2 feet, they will view it as abandonment. Because they aren't looking for a partner, they are looking for a rescuer. Next, you will constantly encounter the shadow projector. These people are masters of denial who have spent years bearing the parts of themselves they find shameful, their anger, their jealousy, their failures, and their insecurity. Because they refuse to acknowledge these shadows within their own minds, they act them out onto you. They use you as a psychological dumping ground. If they are feeling inadequate, they will criticize your competence. If they are feeling unlovable, they will treat you with coldness. They need you to carry the emotions they are too weak to confront. By projecting these heavy, toxic traits onto you, they get to feel clean and good, while you are left feeling confused, heavy, and burdened by emotions that aren't even yours. You aren't being treated as a person, you are being treated as a trash can for their unrefined character traits. Finally, there is the most dangerous archetype of all, the energy vampire. These are true psychological parasites whose own emotional and spiritual development is completely stunted. Unlike the wounded child or the shadow projector, who have some level of unconscious conflict, the energy vampire has learned that the easiest way to survive is to bypass their own emotional work entirely and simply plug into someone else's battery. They are not interested in healing or growing, they are interested in consumption. They sense your high vibrational energy, your optimism, your kindness, and your vitality, and they systematically drain it to feel alive themselves. They will manufacture crises, initiate endless drama, and keep you in a constant state of hyper-arousal just to feed off the reaction you give them. They leave you feeling like a hollowed-out shell, completely depleted of your drive and your spirit, while they walk away feeling energized and refreshed, ready to hunt for their next victim. The most dangerous trap you face as an empath is the trauma reenactment loop, a phenomenon rooted in what Carl Jung called the wounded healer constellation. This is a fragile, dual-edged state where your capacity to heal others is exactly equal to your vulnerability to being destroyed. If you walk through life with unhealed, unintegrated wounds of your own, you are essentially walking around with an open fracture. Your aura, rather than acting as a protective barrier, becomes a bleeding edge that leaks your energy indiscriminately. You aren't just attracting people, you are broadcasting a frequency that specifically calls out to those who are capable of hurting you in the exact ways you were hurt in your past. You become a beacon for narcissists and chronic victims because your unhealed trauma acts like a homing signal for people who need to recreate the same toxic dynamics you are trying to escape. This loop is not a coincidence, it is an agonizingly precise repetition. When you find yourself trapped in a relationship with someone who makes you feel small, unheard, or drained, understand that you are not just a victim of their behavior, you are a participant in a mirror match. Every single person who drains you is providing a reflection of a specific, unhealed part of your own psyche. If you continue to attract people who ignore your boundaries, it is because you are still struggling to respect your own. If you attract narcissists who demand your constant attention, it is because you haven't yet learned how to validate yourself without external approval. The loop persists because your electromagnetic signature is essentially asking the universe to play out your original trauma until you are finally forced to confront it, process it, and integrate it once and for all. You are not being attacked. You are being shown exactly where you are currently abandoning yourself. Once you stop the cycle and begin the journey towards sovereign sovereignty, your entire role in human interactions shifts fundamentally. You stop being a sponge and start being a mirror. An awakened empath acts as a high-definition psychological mirror to anyone who enters their orbit, and this transition produces two wildly different reactions. When you encounter people who are truly conscious, those who are doing their own inner work, they feel a deep magnetic sense of peace around you. This is because your aura is no longer projecting your own unhealed chaos. Instead, it is reflecting their own inner light, potential, and authenticity back to them. They feel seen in a way they have never been seen before. Being around you feels like coming home to themselves, and this creates a nourishing, mutual exchange of energy that elevates both of you. However, the experience for unconscious people is the exact opposite. Because they have spent their lives running from their own shadows, your grounded, authentic presence feels like an existential threat to their comfort. When they stand near you, your aura acts as a mirror that forces them to look at their own hidden insecurities, their buried shame, and their unprocessed rage. They cannot look away. and they hate you for it. This triggers a massive wave of shadow projection anxiety within them. Since they refuse to take responsibility for what they see, they lash out. They will criticize your sensitivity, call you too much, or try to gaslight you into doubting your own reality. They do this because they are desperately trying to shatter the mirror. They need to destabilize your frequency and pull you down into their muck. Because if they can make you as unconscious as they are, they don't have to face the truth of their own darkness. Understanding this is your ultimate defense. Realize that their hostility isn't about you. It's about the truth your presence is forcing them to see. To transform from a defenseless sponge into a sovereign force, you must move beyond passive suffering and adopt a structured approach to your own psyche. This isn't about hiding from the world. It is about learning how to move through it without sacrificing your own essence. By applying these 4 pillars of the aura method, you can dismantle the old self-destructive patterns that kept you trapped in the wounded healer cycle, and finally step into your power as a conscious, self-contained sovereign. Acknowledge your nature. The first step is to stop apologizing for the depth of your soul. You have spent years viewing your sensitivity as a defect, a thin skin that makes you too vulnerable to the world's harshness. You must flip this narrative entirely. Your ability to feel is not a weakness. It is a high-level form of emotional intelligence that most people can never grasp. You are essentially a high-fidelity instrument in a world of static. Once you stop viewing your gifts as a curse, you need to start tracking your energy accounting. Every day, pay attention to who and what drains your battery versus what fills it. Notice the people who leave you feeling hollow and the environments that make your nervous system tighten. By keeping a mental or written log of these daily outputs, you stop being a victim of circumstance and become an auditor of your own life. When you see exactly where your energy is leaking, you gain the power to plug the holes. Understand your complexes. This is the stage where you face the uncomfortable truth about your quote-unquote caretaker tendencies. Many empaths operate under the unconscious belief that they are only worth something if they are useful to someone else. You need to identify the specific patterns that convince you that your existence is tied to rescuing others. Ask yourself, why do I feel guilty when I'm not fixing someone's problems? Why do I gravitate toward people who can't take care of themselves? These are your complexes, hidden, automated programs that drive you to sacrifice your peace for a sense of purpose. Self-reflection is your scalpel here. You have to be willing to sit in the discomfort of saying no and dismantle the deep-seated guilt you feel when you finally choose yourself. You are not a savior, and you are not a repair shop. Realizing that you do not owe your life force to those who refuse to grow is the first step toward genuine freedom. Reclaim your boundaries. You have been living with a permeable energy field, acting as a revolving door for anyone who wants to walk in and out. It is time to turn that door into a conscious membrane. A healthy boundary isn't a brick wall that makes you cold and unapproachable. It's a filter that allows love, light, and genuine connection in, while simultaneously locking out manipulation, projection, and trauma dumping. You must practice consistent energetic hygiene to clear the residue you collect. If you've spent a day absorbing the stress of your workplace or the negativity of a friend, you cannot just hope it goes away on its own. You must flush it out. This means retreating into intentional solitude, grounding yourself in nature, or channeling that heavy energy into a creative outlet like writing, exercise, or art. You are physically cleansing your field, returning your system to its authentic frequency, and reminding yourself that you are the only one who has final say over who gets access to your inner world. Activate conscious empathy. This is the final, most advanced stage of your evolution. You are moving away from the knee-jerk reaction of, I feel it, so I must fix it, and moving toward a state of detachment that is both wise and profoundly compassionate. This requires you to hold two opposites in your awareness at once. You can care deeply about someone's struggle without needing to dive into the deep end with them. You are training yourself to be a witness, not a victim. You can look at someone's pain, offer your presence, and hold space for them, but you no longer allow their emotional toxins to enter your physical body. You are observing the storm without becoming the storm. When you master this, you remain centered, grounded, and sovereign, regardless of the emotional intensity happening around you. You aren't becoming heartless. You are becoming the strongest version of yourself, capable of loving others without losing the one person who matters most, you. When you finally master your energetic boundaries, something profound happens. You stop being a target and start being a frequency. For your entire life, you have broadcasted a signal that inadvertently shouted, I am available for draining, to anyone looking for a host. You were the safe haven for the broken and the battery for the parasite. But the moment you claim your sovereignty, that signal changes. You are no longer vibrating at the frequency of the wounded, and because of this, the energy vampires and the bottomless pits of need begin to naturally drift away. They find you boring or intimidating because they can no longer latch onto you. They are looking for a sponge, and you are no longer it. In their place, your life begins to fill with people who are actually ready to walk the path. Highly conscious, integrated individuals who are looking for a teammate, not a caretaker. You stop attracting the people who want to take from you and start attracting the ones who are ready to rise with you. This shift marks your transition into a true sovereign healer. You have finally realized that your life force is not a commodity to be handed out to whoever screams the loudest. You stop the desperate, exhausting work of trying to drag people out of their own darkness when they haven't even asked for the light. It's a painful but necessary realization. You cannot heal someone who is in love with their own misery. By letting go of the need to fix those who aren't ready to change, you stop hemorrhaging your own vitality. You aren't being cold or uncaring. You are being honest. You realize that your mission isn't to be a martyr for the walking wounded. It is to be a beacon for those who are actually ready to find their own way home. You are no longer serving people by absorbing their pain. You are serving them by refusing to participate in their cycle of dysfunction. Ultimately, your presence becomes a healing field in its own right. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to give advice, offer pep talks, or laboriously process everyone's emotions until you're on the verge of burnout. You simply exist. Because you are grounded in your own wholeness, your aura radiates a frequency of integration. When you walk into a room, the energy shifts not because you've worked to change it, but because your very presence creates a standard of health that others can instinctively feel. You are no longer healing people from the perspective of your own unhealed scars. You are healing them from the perspective of your completeness. You are showing them through your demeanor, your boundaries, and your peace that it is actually possible to be whole. This is the ultimate evolution of the empath. You become the living evidence that pain doesn't have to be a permanent identity. People will feel better around you, not because you took their weight, but because you showed them they were strong enough to carry it themselves. You are no longer a bridge that people walk over to get to a better life. You are a destination. You have reached a point where your life is no longer a collection of survival tactics, but a deliberate expression of your own truth. You are whole, you are protected, and you are free. You have finally become the sovereign master of your own soul. And in doing so, you have become the most powerful healing force you have ever known.